Hello, friends, welcome back. So, today we have a very exciting conversation about generating thesis ideas. Now, the biggest issue with a lot of essays isn't actually the writing, it's what's being said. I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in a minute. But really, what your argument is, your thesis, is the most important piece of your essay. It's incredibly fundamental. Great essays begin with bold ideas. Nobody wants to read an incredibly well-written essay that's also incredibly boring. So we're going to avoid doing that. Okay, again, I will reiterate. The biggest thesis mistake is failing to generate an original and engaging idea. Okay? Your essay is going to sink or swim based on whether or not it actually has something interesting to say. Believe me, college professors read a whole lot of essays. Please don't bore them. Don't be repetitive. Don't be redundant. Give them something to think about, and you're going to stand out. Okay? That's what they're looking for. Now, the great man, Ernest Hemingway, said something that I think is quite useful in this context. My working habits are simple. Long periods of thinking, short periods of writing. Now, sometimes we may need to do long periods of writing. I'm not saying you can just kick back, use your big brains, and never touch a keyboard. That's not the situation. But the thinking is really important, okay? When you're preparing to write an essay, a paper, a report, an article, you really want to spend some time considering what it is that you have to say, and importantly, why your audience should be interested in what you have to say. And that longer period of thinking is going to help cut down on the period you have to spend writing, okay? If you approach a task with clarity, with ideas, you are going to save time in the long run. But this thinking is really important. It's not something you should just skip over. Don't dive straight in. Okay, so a thesis statement should do one or more of the following. Interrogate, speculate, connect, define, or solve. These are pretty big and broad categories deliberately, because I'm talking about thesis statements on any topic, any subject you might come across. These are general categories that can be applied to business, economics, languages, science, history, psychology. It doesn't really matter. I've deliberately made these categories big enough that no matter what you're studying or no matter what the essay question posed, you can think around them, think within them. Okay, interrogate. Do not be afraid to use your essay to ask questions, okay? This is something I read so many essays and I'm like, oh man, if only you would have just challenged the assumption that this is based upon, or, instead of just sort of accepting everything that you'd read about this, asking, is this the only narrative, or is this the only way of looking at the situation? So one of the best ways to generate a strong thesis is to interrogate assumptions and conventional wisdom related to the topic and assignment. This can be especially useful for subjects like history and literature, where events are axiomatically open to interpretation. But it can also apply in fields like science, economics. There's an awful lot of what we take as kind of common sense or the way things are that are actually built upon assumptions. And the more we start to interrogate and challenge those, the more interesting our thinking can become, the more interesting our ideas might become. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example because this might not seem sufficiently concrete yet. Let's take a literature essay question. I pulled this off the internet. You could probably find it again. Can Jay's feelings for Daisy in The Great Gatsby be considered love? This is the kind of question that is ripe for interrogation. What is meant by love? How is it defined in the novel? How have cultural definitions of love changed since the novel was written? What does Fitzgerald's attitude seem to be towards the society he's writing about? Does the novel seem to support or challenge tropes about love? Okay, that's a specific example. General questions you can ask yourself about assumptions that appear in essay questions or in your studies. How is X term defined, and by whom? So how is love defined, and who gets to say what love is, right? What assumptions is this question or statement or idea based upon? Why have these assumptions emerged? Who benefits from this interpretation? What if X happens instead of Y? Whose point of view is prioritized by this assumption? What if that point of view were different? Again, these questions can apply to any topic, any field of study. Just get used to asking them. Anytime you see a word like love or good or bad, anytime these kind of subjective terms emerge in a question or in your studies, you should definitely take a minute and be like, all right, says who? How is this being understood, and how is that important? Okay, the second option, and this is always fun, speculate. In any field, instead of writing about what has happened, you could always write about what could happen or what could have happened, right? What if Columbus's ships had sunk? What if penicillin hadn't been discovered? What if the number of miles we were allowed to drive in a car was restricted by law? What if Beethoven hadn't lost his hearing? What if Juliet survived? We can always imagine how things could have been. Now, the challenge with this is obviously when you're writing research papers, there doesn't tend to be a lot of peer-reviewed research on things that didn't happen. But there are workarounds to this. And I will talk about this more when we get to research. So, you will need to be smart with your argumentation and with your research. But it is possible if you craft the right thesis, and it can really make your essay stand out. If you put that extra work in, it can really be reflected in your final grade. Okay, connect. Do not stay in your lane. If you are writing an essay about biology, feel free to throw in some philosophy. Or if you are writing an essay about philosophy, feel free to throw in some, statistics. It doesn't really matter. Connecting ideas from different disciplines, time periods, experts, topics, regions, etc. demonstrates breadth of knowledge. It lets you demonstrate creativity. It lets you demonstrate original thought. It also lets you play to your strengths. If you know a lot about a particular something, investigate or weave in how that relates to the topic you're writing about. I'm a music nerd. Every essay I wrote in college somehow had something to do with music in it. It was fine. It was great. And really, in high school, they ask you to write essays to demonstrate that you know how to write essays. At university, at college, you need to step up to another level. You need to demonstrate your thinking skills, okay? And connections, being able to draw ideas and information from different disciplines is super important. That is a really key way of showing that you are thinking beyond the immediate topic and that you have broader knowledge and ideas, that you know how to connect things. It's so vital. Okay, also redefine and reconsider. So this is kind of linked to the idea of interrogation, which we talked about in a little more detail. But again, create a thought-provoking thesis by offering new definitions, ideas, and outlooks. Do not stick with the known world if you can help it. I mean, sometimes that is appropriate. I'm not saying that every essay you write has to be, incredible speculation, but always be thinking, what if we looked at this from a different perspective? How would this read if, a different group were involved? Or how would we understand this if a historical fact were different? Continually challenge your own assumptions. Continually ask yourself, is this based on research? Is this based on a deeper understanding of the world? Or have I just kind of absorbed this as fact and I'm repeating it? Try not to repeat, okay? try to be original. So always push yourself to redefine, reconsider, think about different ways of approaching a topic, different outlooks. Okay, And another not unimportant thing that you have the opportunity to do in an essay is suggest solutions, right? Everybody can spot problems. Our world is full of problems, okay? Our personal lives are probably full of problems. We got no shortage of problems. Solutions are hard, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many problems. So one way you can really make your essay stand out is by arguing for a creative solution to a challenging question. This might be a historical question. You can look back and think about how could things have been done differently. It might be a question, a contemporary issue with science or social sciences. I think this strategy is particularly strong in the science and social science fields because, again, we've got a lot of problems in the world. There's all sorts of things that demand critical thinking, that demand creativity, that demand, we use our brains in the best possible way because we've got to live together in this world. So when you can offer a solution through your essay that really demonstrates higher level critical thinking, it shows engagement with real world issues, all of these are really positive things. Okay, so that's going to wrap up my little 5-point thesis idea generation video. So go ahead, consider these. We are going to be talking more concretely about how you actually structure and write a thesis statement once you've got your ideas sorted. So please do rejoin. Check back in for that video. I will see you all very soon. Thank you so much for being here.